Sylvia, put yourself on mute for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely your microphone. I don't know. There's some type of underlying like feedback or vibration in coming from your microphone.
I just turned it down. Is it still that? Is it still vibrating?
Yeah, and it's like breaking up too, coming in and out.
I can try bringing you another Chromebook in a second, Sylvia, once the meeting starts.
Is it still vibrating?
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't hear it.
Am I the only one that hears that?
Sounds clear to me.
There's a vibrating
Better
in the background,
now.
but Sylvia, you're
Check one on second.
I'm fine now.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. I was having a very hard time clicking the link and it not doing anything for a while. So, I guess with that said, we are now ready to begin the City Operations Committee meeting of the City of Plattsburgh. It is February 8th, 2021. The time is 5:03. First, we'll take attendance. Chairperson McFarland is here. Councilor Canales.
Here.
Councilor Gibbs.
Here.
Mayor Rosenquist.
Present.
Everyone is present. So the first item we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 City Operations Committee. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? All right, so I'll take a motion. Councilor Canales and Councilor Gibbs seconds. Any discussion on this item?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll move to roll call. Councilor McFarland votes yes. Councilor Canales.
Sorry, Patrick, just a point of order. You can do an all in favor on all of these items.
Okay.
Rather than a roll call vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? That motion passes. Number two, we have information technology. And so this is to get an update on our new contract for information technology. Mayor Rosenquist, would you like to give an update on it?
Can you hear me? Sorry. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. All right. So as many of you know that the SimQuest IT contract was signed late last year. Last couple of weeks, they have come to do on-site work, which includes installing some network traffic monitors to not only gauge the amount of traffic coming in and out of our different networks, but also to start the process of identifying machines that are reachable and not reachable. This process is going very smoothly at this point, and part of the process is to also understand the amount of work that will eventually be passed off to them to manage. our network and manage calls for support on our network. I'm still working on the back end to really just identify the amount of work that we're going to need to do based on the amount of work that we're contracting out to do right now. The ultimate goal is that on which we do and we are on track to accomplish is on the 5th of March is to begin that transition over of our managed service process. So on the 5th of March, we will start the work of, at least by then, we'll start the work of making that transition between our current managed service provider to SimQuest. And short of any issues, which I do not see any right now, we are on track for that. Part of the proposal that they want to put forth is managing our phone systems, but like I told them, they are more than welcome to propose something. But I think at the end of the day, we are going to have to probably go out to bid for something like that for that work. There are a number of good providers in the area, and including SimQuest. But there are certainly a number of good providers in the area that we need to have a better sense of the nature, the competitive nature of that book of business. So, with that being said, other than that, there really is a pretty, that's a pretty straightforward update from my end. Other than that, there's really nothing else. But I certainly will entertain any questions.
Mr. Mayor, is there, has it changed any operations in the city thus far? The contract, it still seems rather in its implementation phase, but
it really is right now is all implementation. It's all measuring network traffic, measuring endpoints that are on the network, identifying any hardware that may not be responding at this point, and figuring out why that is. Nothing major in that sense. But after that work has been done, after we kind of get the landscape of all of our IT systems, then we start to make some operational changes into how we install software and how we respond to tickets and things like that.
And has there been discussions and ideas about how it will coordinate with our OpenGov software and things of that nature?
I don't, at this point, no. We haven't talked about that, but I'll do some more digging into that and then have a report back.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, what's up?
Once they finish doing the mapping of the network, say that they find some hardware in the loop that is not non-responsive, is that going to change the dollar amount allocated for this contract for them to bring up to date the hardware in the loop that's necessary for the software?
It will not change the dollar amount, and we do expect to bring some machines offline, or at least take some machines out of the network after that work has been done. But right now, the amount of work, the allocation of work is done mostly by hours, and we don't foresee those amounts of hours increasing or decreasing. It's just a block of time that's allotted to do the work. Thank you.
Any other discussion points on the IT contract? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 3, we have the city clerk. And I see we have 3.1 discussion of collection reports, and 3.2 is a discussion on mobile food vendor licensing programs. So Sylvia, I'll let you take it from here.
So I think I met today with the mayor. Currently, I take in all my fees. There's a all clerks in the state use. Do the report, I run it, I get to Richard. Richard then I cut a check to the state departments that I need to, and then I cut a check to Richard. So we're going to see if there's a way to maybe integrate the monthly report from my system into his, just the dumps, because obviously I have confidential records in a lot of my software, my vital records. So I think that was all we really discussed about that. Mobile food vendor licensing program, I had that. I don't know if the mayor wants to take that. It's completely up to you.
Yeah,
But
I can.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So earlier, probably mid last week or so, Sylvia came to me. We are reviewing right now, in the process of reviewing all of our fees, our vendor fees, and all of the rental fees that we have in the city. Actually, it was prompted by somebody wanting to rent the stage for the summer. So we got into a more broader conversation about the fees that we're charging, how much we're charging, and then the topic of food vendors came up in that conversation. There is some notion in the city that food vendors are not able to operate in the city, that's not quite accurate. There's some limitations about how food vendors can operate in our downtown area, but right now what we're seeing is that we have a number of food vendors that operate throughout the city, regardless of what type of licensing they have or don't have. So one thing that we talked about was establishing a more sensible piece of legislation that would, one, clean up the current language in the current code language as part of the street vendor. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. One is cleaning up the language, the code language for street vending, food vending, and then just highlight or just reestablishing or establishing some level of licensing for food vendors. Primarily, what I'd like to have the conversation, why I'd like to have this conversation is because, when say like we open the beach or we have events at, for example, the Oval, where we want people to be out there, we want large crowds to be out there, and we want vendors to be out there to also, support that kind of like activity and entertainment. When we say like Open Harbor side and we have concerts out there, we want to be able to have that kind of level of food vending, and we can talk about the whole reason why I say the city, why there was a limitation on food vending in our central district. But I will note that a lot of the opposition to food vending in our central district was based on, I believe, one more vocal person who doesn't operate in our downtown anymore. So that's one of the reasons why we came back to this conversation for cleaning up the language and then reestablishing some type of mobile food vendor licensing program, so that we can encourage that kind of activity in throughout our city. How was that, Sylvia?
I think that was good.
Awesome.
I think that's a good discussion to have because it'd definitely be nice to have like some food trucks and vendors, especially you mentioned the stage. Someone wants to rent the stage, and it'd be nice if there's concerts down there, that food trucks would be great.
Yeah.
Following up on that though, so what's going on with the stage?
Oh, a person reached out who's interested in renting the stage for a music series, and it was just one of those. I think we've pretty much clearly established a schedule of payment for that kind of approach. But then the question about the food trucks and having those types of events and having food trucks attend those types of events, or even I know part of the conversation was, there's a food truck that shows up to the baseball games at Melissa Penfield, and they don't have a license and they don't have water, they don't have access to electricity, but that's something that we could provide if there was some type of licensing program for that vendor and for other vendors like that. So that's kind of how that got started. But I think the as far as, and we're still working that out because it's a little bit early in the season for trying to figure out like a concert schedule at Harborside. But we are working through that process right now and working with that vendor.
Yeah, and I imagine that was Benjamin with the curbside at Harborside.
I believe that's the same person.
Yeah, we may want to get some, and just spitballing, get some sort of policy in place for how to reserve and things like that, because it hasn't been an issue yet. But I could see, if one organization saves the um, stage, I don't know why I couldn't think of the word stage, but reserves the stage for every Saturday. There may be some people that come up in like March or April or and something like that nature be like, I want to get the stage Saturday. Why does this, one organization get to have it all the time? I could see the farmers market wanting to have certain events where they could use the stage and things of that nature. So we may want to start thinking about some policies as far as that goes.
And I think that was part of the conversation at some point about, because there was another group that wanted to rent the stage or rent some part of the park or something like that for a short period of time. But there was potentially some overlap or some conflicting calendars or schedules for that. But yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, last year it ended up not being an issue, and we were lucky to have the curbside. And I'm a big supporter of that. That curbside concert series was great. But if and when COVID alleviates itself, I imagine we're going to get some demand for using that stage.
Yeah, and I think we've come to a point where we've seen that we can operate events and uh, like those types of gatherings in a fair and safe way. And it's now just like looking at it from, well, how do you kind of facilitate more of that and continuing to be safe and continuing to grow the city and entertainment in the city. And I think that this is certainly one of those ways.
All right, perfect. Well, we're still on Sylvia. Does anyone have any questions for Sylvia on either of these two items or any other items? Or Sylvia, is there anything else you want to bring to the committee's attention?
Nope, I think I'm good. I'll take questions if anyone has any.
No, I don't have any.
I don't either, so thank you very much, Sylvia.
Yep.
And so we're moving on to item number 4. We have recreation and tourism. 4.1 is a draft resolution authorizing the mayor to sign various fishing tournaments agreements, and those are outlined on page 1 through 10 of the materials. So I'm opening up my materials. I had a chance to read through them. Is there any discussion anyone wants to have on any of these fishing tournaments?
Sorry, just a point of order, Counselor, the Chairman. We'll take a motion in a second and then go into a discussion because this is a draft resolution.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So first off, do we have a motion on this resolution item? Counselor Canales and Counselor Gibbs seconds. So now any discussion on this item?
Yeah, so as you know, we do work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce. They have a number of fishing tournaments this year coming in. And I believe that one of them is a newer fishing tournament that is done primarily on the water. It's not done at the dock, which has been established as kind of their landing place. And we'll continue to foster that area as a fishing tournament area. Highlighting not only our waterfront, but the availability of building tourism in partnership with the chamber. And so there are a number of agreements in your packet that highlight those fishing tournaments.
Did you say there was one extra tournament this year?
I believe so. I attended their meeting on Friday, and Alyssa was mentioning that one of the tournaments is a little bit of a different format. It might I don't know if it's the same tournament, which is just with a different format, or if it's a different tournament altogether.
Did these tournaments end up happening last year? I'm trying to remember because I know we approved them.
Yes, they did happen last year.
And do they change the way they're run based on the pandemic and things of that nature? I remember I've seen them before. I didn't check them out last year, and there's quite a lot of people at these events.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think that they changed in terms of like the outcome of them. I think it was mostly just how they celebrated at the end, when everybody was back on shore and they're socially distanced and everybody was wearing masks, the whole thing. So
Okay. Any other discussion points on
yeah, I will say that probably late in the fall last year, I found a video of one of the winners of the tournament, but I will share that with the council. I thought it was a fantastic highlight of the tournament itself and of Lake Champlain.
Any other questions or discussion on these items? So hearing none, we'll all in favor of moving these items to the regular council meeting.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this resolution will pass to go forward to the regular council meeting. And then item number 5 is finance. We have 5.1, discussion in the payment window, availability, hours of operation. This is basically the finance office. As many of you know, that there was a resolution passed by the council on September 10th of last year. And a lot of notices went out on the back of people's or with people's electric bills, basically saying that the hours of operation that will be closed, and that well, that you'll have to send your payment to Hicksville. There was a lot of issues to discuss. Chairman Marks Chamberlain Marks is here, and he can discuss that. One is tax payments. I know became an issue, and certainly I know myself, and I'm sure other councilors did get some constituent concern about closing the finance desk. So, Richard, are you available?
Yes.
So can you tell us what's going on with the finance desk as of right now?
Well, we haven't closed the finance window that we're using. We're using one window out of the 4 that we have. We haven't closed that. Of course, City Hall was shut down for a while just before the end of the year, and everybody could get in by making appointments or calling at the door and asking to come in, or beating on the door loud enough to get us to hear them. But Mayor Rosenquist has reopened City Hall, and so the office is still open, and the drop box is still receiving payments as well. There've been a lot of questions from bill payers and customers in general about, can we still come in and, set up accounts, final accounts, pay bills, and also can we still use the Dropbox? And we've been saying yes. So even though the resolution said that everything was going to be closed, it's still open and operational. The only thing that we've curtailed is not being open at lunch between 12 and 1, which we're going to reopen this week, because now that we have people back from furlough, we will have the coverage and we will be able to provide that service again. And it won't cause any disruption because we can stagger lunches and it won't create overtime. But we have kept the hour to close at 3 o'clock instead of 4, because that way we can guarantee we're not going to have any overtime.
And but when people send it in the mail, it does go to Hicksville?
We've sent out, well, every time we send out our bills, the official address that's on the bill is now Hicksville, New York. We've been letting people know that that's where they should make their payments to the lockbox. Auto pay customers have increased from 470 last March to over 1,000 now. So that's beginning to take hold. There's only about 12,500 accounts that still have to be converted. So it's a process that will take some time. We've got roughly 1,120 people that have signed up for e-bill, but that number hasn't changed much since 2009. E-bill's been available since then. And, people just don't, by the droves, change to get their bills by email, because a lot of people don't trust the email. A lot of people don't pay attention to their email. A lot of people say, I don't have a computer. And so e-bill is not the most popular item, but the auto pay has really taken off here just recently. And, you know, by the way the numbers are changing, of course, it'd be another 18 years before we get all of the accounts established, which, you know, is a long time, but still, it's a generational thing. And as people get more electronically proficient, they're going to be changing. And we encourage every customer, no matter whether we're talking to them in person or by phone, to sign up for auto pay, sign up for e-bill. We push it as much as we can.
And currently, the Dropbox is still open too, right?
Yes, and that's very popular, especially now. Property tax bills, as you all know, were mailed on February 3rd. You would have got them probably by Friday the 5th, if not over the weekend. And people have started to come in and pay their property tax bills. They love to get them out of the way. And so they're dropping them in the Dropbox and coming right to the desk and asking to pay. So yeah, the Dropbox is still open and still very popular.
And I had a question. So, well, for argument's sake, let's say you know, the Dropbox and the desk are closed. The other thing that people do at the finance desk is they pay the parking tickets or buy those $3 a day parking permits. If the desk is closed, how would you go about buying the parking permits and paying parking tickets?
That would be a challenge. There is an online capability of paying parking tickets through the police department's website, but I believe that the fee to do that is 5 or 6 times higher than what we do with the city with credit cards and with e-checks. So that would be a challenge to be able to provide that service without having a window open. Most of the time people come in to pay parking tickets in cash as well. Now, without the Dropbox open, they couldn't even drop their coupons and their cash payments in that facility for us to pick up and apply to their open parking ticket. So that would be a challenge, parking tickets. Now, as far as selling the permits, I guess what we could do is just say, hey, by appointment, you need to get a permit, give us a call. You can come in and purchase it, you know, by appointment.
And people can buy, I remember when I was talking to business owners, a lot of them were going and buying like booklets of those parking permits. Are people still doing that?
I'd have to check. I don't think it's that popular right now. I don't think that, you know, there've been a lot of customers for that, but there are some. At first it did take off. Like you said, people were buying hands full so that they had them for, you know, weeks on end, but I think it's dropped off a bit. I'll have to get you an update on that, and I will tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Richard. And so I know when this this resolution, I wasn't there when this resolution was passed, and I think I watched the council meeting after. But the big push, and I know Councillor Barbell addressed this, you know, months later when I had brought it up, and he brought up a good point that this this resolution was to sort of advance more efficient ways of processing payments and getting to the next level of automated payments. And I remember, I want to think it was last November, you know, Councillor Barbo made a good point. He said, when I had brought this up, he said something along the lines of, I know people are going to complain about this. I know, you know, a lot of people get used to the way things are done. A lot of people like to go pay in person, but we can't look back. And you know, you can't stop progress. We need to incentivize moving forward to more efficient ways of doing things. Now, Richard, I know this has been discussed before, but can you go over like if the resolution is followed, how much money will be saved by the by the desk being closed and the Dropbox being closed?
Well, it depends. I think originally the whole idea of this was to convert the city to the same format as New York State Electric and Gas follows locally, where there's no open payment window, so you can't pay bills locally, and everybody mail their payment to their Dropbox in Boston, Massachusetts. And that was the push for this. And of course, I think one of the other conditions was if that were to take place, oh boy, you could afford to get rid of a person in your finance office. Of course, there was lots of discussion over that, and I think that Councilor Gibbs and Dean and Beth will remember last year, and you too, there was tons of discussion about this 3 or 4 times, and it's like, I told everybody I couldn't make any guarantees about being able to keep up with the office operations by losing a person, that if someone were to retire within the next, say, 6 months to a year, then certainly that might be incentive to try and not fill that position and continue with letting attrition take its path there so they could reduce our costs. But certainly to predicate closing the office with layoffs wasn't my point and wasn't going to be, agreed to by me at all. So that was part of it. And the other part of it is, yeah, we're trying to advance the electronic processes, but once again, I mean, we have an older population that lives in the city, and not everybody is acclimated to just a brute force change where it's like, we're closing this, so get used to it. There's a lot of people that still pay in cash. There's a lot of people that are older generation people, and they're living in assisted living places. They don't have a bank account. They don't have a computer. They don't have internet service. And so, we try to accommodate all those customers. And of course, by saying, okay, we're closing the office and forcing the change, it's going to put a lot of people at risk of, having to dramatically change what they do and not sure if they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I can tell the council that I talked to a lot of constituents that were very concerned about this when the letter went out, and I think some people are still pretty concerned about it. And obviously, this has been discussed at numerous council meetings last year. And I brought up maybe we can meet halfway. Have the Dropbox still be open and have the desk opened once a week, twice a week, once every other week, whatever works best, or some way in between. And I don't know what the right answer is there. And I don't know if Richard has an opinion on that as well. But it's certainly something that we should probably address, because right now we have a resolution passed on September 10th, 2020, which I don't have the wording of right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it dictates that desk has to be closed and the Dropbox be closed. And I think we should, and certainly this committee doesn't have yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just that, because we have a conversation about both what you mentioned about closing the window or having it open only certain days of the week. We talked about that. We talked about the usability of the actual payment site, the fees for one-time either ACH debit credit payment, as well as fees for the ongoing recurring payment. The e-bill, which Mr. Marks refers to, is paperless billing, and so there's, just part of the sense that I get is, one, there's a marketing issue that we can address internally that really packages the online bill pay on the paperless approach. I think that's part of it. I think that maybe some of you who have used that payment portal would agree that it could be probably more user friendly or brought up to speed, or made to look a little bit more, or just the user friendly piece of it. And then going back to what Mr. Marks has also said, we live in a community that is underbanked. Meaning people don't trust the banks. People would rather cash their paycheck and pay their bills that way, or they can't afford to have a bank account. And this is real for our community, right? And we need to understand that. So as much as I am a technologist, I think that there is a way to move in the direction of digital payment and online payment and paperless billing, but to just completely cut it off with no plan for those folks to fill that gap. I think that, we can wean into it a little bit. My recommendation would be to rescind that resolution on
September 10th, 2020.
when was it? August?
It was September 10th, 2020.
Sorry, September 10th. September 10th, 2020. My recommendation would be to pass a resolution rescinding that resolution. And I'm sure Dean can come up with some interesting language for that. But also internally to do that work, to start that work of, encouraging people. And again, I think it's more of a marketing problem than anything else. And not to say I figure that out, but it's just my initial look at the problem, and it's just my initial look at the problem and seeing where it can go from here. But again, to Richard's point, we do also have an aging population that people don't always feel comfortable sharing that type of information and storing that type of information online. And so as people get more comfortable in that kind of environment, we will start to see more people move in that direction. And then that's when I think when we get, I'm just throwing out a number, 75-85% of our accounts being paid online, and then we take a look at closing the window or just keeping the window open Tuesdays and Thursdays or whenever that is. But that would be my recommendation on this item. Yeah, that would be my recommendation on this.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here and say I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good way to start. Now, one thing I was going to bring up is Councilor Gibbs did submit resolution wording of a resolution. Did you see that, Mr. Mayor? Of basically, and I think she sent it to the committee, and I believe Dean's had a chance to look at it. But it's basically a resolution, as you were just describing, to backtrack, to overturn the September 10th, 2020, and maybe now's a good time to pass it through to the that resolution to the Common Council, to the full council, to discuss. If the council disagrees with getting rid of it, then they can vote it down. If they want to change anything, they could certainly vote amendments on it. But it seems that we're sort of all in agreement that this should be addressed in some sort of way. So I would make a motion to pass forward this resolution to the Common Council, if you guys are in agreement with that.
I'd second that.
I have not seen the text of the resolution. I'm not opposed to it, but I would certainly like to see the text of it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I know I looked at this a week or two ago and I drafted something. I haven't seen what was circulated recently, whether or not it's the same thing.
So here's what I'll do. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, what was that?
It's the same thing. I'm looking right at it. I didn't make any changes to it. So I forwarded the resolution to you guys. Yeah, so I'm looking at the whole chain of emails here.
Yesterday.
Yep.
And I could read it into the record. The other thing we can do is we have actually another committee meeting before the council meeting. Namely, this Thursday, we're going to have the Finance and Community Development Committee meeting. So we could put it on, or we could ask the chairperson, who's also the mayor, a member of this committee, to put it on for that committee. And then the full council can discuss and pass it through, and it would be heard by the Common Council at the same meeting, which would be next Thursday. If you guys would rather do it that way, or I could read it.
Just for a drafting perspective, I'd appreciate that day or two just to take a second look at it, because it was kind of in draft form a few weeks ago. So that'd be my suggestion or request.
All right, perfect. So I will forward that to you, Dean, and to the mayor. And we can certainly just discuss it further on Thursday if that's how you guys want to do it. So with that in mind, I think we had a good discussion. Unless there's other questions, anyone wants to ask Chamberlain Marks or any other discussion points, I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, just to make a point on that, it will always be my preference to have a full draft of a resolution come before the committee and not introduced at the last minute. So I would appreciate having the opportunity to review it before it's thrust upon the committee or on the floor of the regular meeting so that people can actually take a look at it and vet it.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that too. So yeah, we'll move on here. Any other discussion points on or questions on this item?
No, just that, that everybody's in agreement that we should open up between the hours 12 and 1 for lunch again.
I certainly have no problem with that, Richard, if that's how you, if you think it would be prudent.
Yeah,
Yep,
we
I
see-
can support that.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can support that, definitely.
We see quite a few customers coming in at lunchtime because they're on lunch and they want to come take care of something. So we thought we should open that back up again now that, you know, we don't have people on furlough or anybody in jeopardy of being laid off.
Yeah, and I think that's you know, that's an operation that's that the mayor can certainly make. So, but I certainly don't have a problem with that. To me, that makes a lot of sense because I know a lot of people that work or they get that hour-long lunch break. They might want to go pay their bill then. Okay, well, here no further discussion. We'll move on to item number 6 is new business. I asked you know, there'd be new business, and just in case anyone had some new business, I specifically don't that I can think of, but if anyone has any items of new business they want to bring to the committee's attention, please do. Hearing nothing else, you know what? I actually did just think of something, and this is based on just the thought of the new committee structure. Right now, and on the agenda, we don't have any time for public input or public comment. We never had public comment before on committee, and that really wasn't an issue because the committee meetings were right before the common council meetings. And we had 2 times for public comment on the common council meetings. So and there were times we invited people to speak at the committee meetings. So I don't really have a position on this. I'm not really putting forth an idea, but I wanted to get your guys' input on what are your thoughts on should we have public input on at the committee meeting? I know we're going to be discussing resolutions more intently probably in the committee than at the common council meetings. We couldn't just keep public comment at the common council meetings, but the one argument I could see for having public comment here is that if we're having a full discussion, public comment may illustrate or may add to that discussion, and it may also give us time to look into something that someone brought up, and then, you know, do some research and before it gets to the common council. But I don't really have a position on this, so I thought I'm wondering if you guys have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, what's the harm in listening to the public's comments? Even at the committee level, I personally see nothing wrong with that. We, as the mayor has said, a hallmark of this administration is the transparency. And I think that everybody needs to have that ability, no matter if it's a committee meeting or in the common council, to at least voice what they feel and everything else, because it doesn't matter what brightest and greatest minds we have right here. We're always going to miss something that the community needs. So if we're available and open to hear what the community is saying and have an ear to the street, we're going to just better, you know, the city as a whole. So I personally think that it's a good idea.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm curious as what your position on this would be, because you know, I know this new committee structure is sort of your brainchild, and
Look, I would leave, look, at the end of the day, you know, the chairperson of their own committee can make that determination, and that would be entirely up to you to make that determination. One thing is for committees to work through some of these issues and items where if and when you do open it to the public and you're inviting people to contribute to the discussion of making a resolution, that is where I think it becomes problematic, because part of the conversation is some of it's city business, right? And so if somebody comes in and says, I don't want to support fishing tournaments anymore. Well, I mean, okay, but is that going to shape the dialogue or the conversation for adopting that resolution? Just as an example, there are going to be opportunities, and there are tons of opportunities for people to contribute. If you feel like you would rather have or would want to include a public comment section in the beginning of your meeting or whenever in your meeting, then I would say like that would be entirely up to you as the chairperson of this committee, or anybody chairing a committee. And I don't know obligation wise if there's an obligation to do it, or I mean, like, not to say we want to look at it from an obligation perspective, but we also want to just understand what are all the rules involved with including public comment on these things. Are you inquiring having public comment during the discussion on the as part of the call to question?
No, but I'm thinking, we haven't had a lot of resolutions passed through this committee yet. That could very well change. And if we're trying to have like a thorough discussion on resolution items at the committee to sort of, before they are presented to the entire council, I was thinking, and I'm not even really sure what I think about this. It's kind of off the cuff, but do we want a public comment at the end of the agenda, sort of like right now, maybe after new business or right before new business, so that we might have time to digest input from the public on items before, we'll have a week and a half before the common council meeting when we'd actually be voting on the items, to sort of process any public engagement as far as that goes. We can just leave it until the council meeting. I don't know. I just thought of it and I wanted to get your guys' input. Councilor Gibbs, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I think that I would agree with the mayor that I think that including a public comment section, maybe just leave that up to the chair of the individual committees. I think some committees are going to lend themselves to more frequent community involvement. Like I'm going to take the infrastructure and public safety committees as a perfect example. Those are big committees and sprawling. The public may want to comment on business, or perhaps they might want to bring some issues to the committee to consider before resolutions are voted on, especially because the agendas have titles on resolutions without everything on there, and there might be some time or maybe some lack of clarity about what are we voting on. And Councilor Canales has a point. The more involvement the public has, but perhaps it would just be better to leave that up to individual chairs of committee and just have a broad open comment section like we do in council, just at the very beginning, where the public can make comments on anything on the agenda, and they have their opportunity for input. Because you make a good point that some of these committees meet a week or more before the actual meeting. So I think that, they're all valid points, and maybe we leave it up to the chair of the committee to determine, what that looks like.
Yeah, I have a feeling for this committee, it'll be rather academic. I doubt we'll get too much public comment. But I guess we'll see. I haven't gotten calls from any constituents to have a public comment at the committee, and I don't know if any of you guys have. But you know what? I think I'll try it. I think the next committee meeting, I'll put a public comment section in, especially because Councilor Canales was very vocal thinks it would be a good idea, and we can see how it works. Certainly, people can call us too, and reach out to us individually about any concerns on items before they go to the Common Council. But we can try it, and like I said, I doubt it will change too much. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so, and just a couple of just a pieces of clarification, that the agendas, although there's kind of two parts to the agenda that we send out to both the counselors and to the public. The first part is really just the outline. I guess it would be more of an outline of the agenda, and then the second part in a different packet is the for example, for this resolution authorizing the signature for various tournaments, although the title is only on the agenda, or the outline of the agenda, the corresponding packet outlines the details of that item. So any expenditures or any details of the actual resolution is in full text, and the full text of the resolution is also sent out. Just so people who are coming to comment, they are aware that those things are available. Then the other thing is, and unfortunately, I can only draw from my experience as a legislator in one other position at the county, that even though there was never a public comment section, if somebody was there to comment, we always allowed it, right? So it's just like a common courtesy as electeds to engage with the public in any way possible. Even though it may not formally be on the agenda, I do encourage people to do it. Much like how even in the organizational meeting, we do outline the rules of order to limit public comment to 5 minutes. But it's not something that I'm setting a timer. For example, it's not something that I'm counting the seconds by, and nor will I stop somebody. More than likely, I probably won't just stop somebody mid-sentence to say, hey, your time's up. It's mostly just a courtesy of just letting people kind of come in and speak to the council on any platform or any concerns that they have.
Okay, yeah, and those the supporting documentation with the resolution language and stuff, that is provided to the public too as well, right?
It is all of the. I think there may be some supporting document that is privy to the council alone because of the nature of the contract, or the nature of if it's an employee nature, if it's a contract. Then, and I have to clarify that with Dean, but all of the resolution title and the body of the resolution itself is always sent out and post. So it's sent out to the media, it's posted to the website, and then it's also part of the comment or the description of the YouTube live stream that people, if they do join us. So like for right now, if people are joining online, in the description box, it's a link to both the agenda summary and then the full text of any resolutions that we're going to pass.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll try it next time, and we'll see if anyone comes in. At least then it will be at least advertised on the agenda that will be open for public comment on city operations.
Yeah, and just to your point as well, Councilor Chairman McFarland, is that that even though we're kind of right in the beginning of the year, this is only the second meeting for most of us going into the year. Your agendas will grow. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
So
yeah, okay,
yep.
Perfect. So we'll try it out. Any other new business or anything that anyone would like to bring to the committee's attention? So hearing nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
A motion.
All right, moved by Councilor Canella, seconded by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So with that in mind, we will adjourn this meeting at 5:55 p.m.